everyone. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 12 of the Manly Hanley Podcast. This is the podcast with no limits on what we'll cover. I'm your host, Randy, and with me I have my co-host, Vic the Cat, on standby. Have a snack, sit back, and relax. This episode was recorded on June 1st, 2019. It's Saturday, and it's raining here in Michigan. For announcements, we have one more day for the PreSonus Studio One Professional giveaway. So it's ending pretty soon. There's still time to enter. All entries are final at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday. Get on it. All right, so for today's episode, let's get talking about this perpetual licensing or perpetual nightmare. So the words sign up were not the words I was used to hearing a few years ago when purchasing software for my computer. If you're old enough, you probably remember there was a time when you could purchase something and own it forever. When it comes to software, especially, right? At that time. An example would be when you could travel to the store and purchase a CD-ROM that contained your favorite software. Well, not that long ago, really, but it seems like it now. You would buy the software, though. You'd take it home and you'd install it on your computer. During your software install, either right when you put the CD in or after you launch the software, after you installed it, you get a little thing asking for the CD key or the product key, right? And it might be written right on the instructions in the box or what, wherever. It could be on the box, I guess. I remember some CDs had it stuck on the back. I think it was like Quake 3 Arena was one of the last games I remember having the CD key on the back. But you'd be prompted to enter that in, and then you could enjoy the software for years to come. And that was the old school way. So I'm going to go in and dive in regarding some pros and cons for perpetual licensing versus subscription model that we see nowadays. I'll kind of explain what those are. And this could apply to anybody. So this is a good listen for any of you that buy software or, if you're buying software for your company. Let's get into perpetual licensing first. What is it? Offhand, it sounds pretty cool. It's a type of license that lets the customer use the program long term. So I guess you kind of own it, right? And you can purchase the term for how long you would get support on that software. So a benefit to perpetual licensing is that it makes sense financially for some companies because it tends to cost less over time, as opposed to the subscription licensing, which I'll get into a little bit later. I actually think perpetual licensing is pretty good. Like I see it in a corporate setting and it works out. So just think of this software, this perpetual licensing software, as you're paying for it, the version that you're getting, you're paying for that version, and then maybe you'll have some support included with it for 1 to 2 years, maybe. Companies eventually want to add new features to their software, though, like the updates, the security, all that stuff, and that costs time and money to pay the developers. So nothing can be free forever, and that's where we start moving into subscription licensing, which I'll get into. But what happens if you stop paying for that support on the perpetually licensed software? Well, the good thing about it is it likely will still work. It won't just shut off or anything like that. But maybe you'll receive a notification that you can extend your support, or you can get better service and updates and security patches, all that stuff, along with latest support if you pay to renew. The software will likely still allow you to use it. So you can decide at that point if you'd like to continue with your support on that old version or just let it stay on your computer the way it is. If it meets your needs, hey, you've saved some bucks, right? Well, what if you know everything there is to know about software? And what if I don't want to buy support? I just want to own it forever and keep that copy. Okay, we used to be able to do that, right? But if I think back to some of that software I have to look at now and say, will that run on my computer without a lot of tinkering? And that's kind of where that's where things start to change, and they kind of win me over for paying for these softwares. These companies, they want me. I give into it, I guess. An example would be an old copy of Photoshop. I have an old copy of Photoshop. I think the file size at the time was 300 megabytes, not even maybe for the full install directory, which obviously can easily fit on a CD-ROM. And I have that CD-ROM, and it's an old copy of Photoshop where you could install it on the computer and continue to run it. But that's the thing. It's stuck in that time. You're not going to get any of the newest features that you would see on the modern version of Photoshop that you would generally download off the company's website. And it would kind of check in to make sure it has the latest updates. And I'm not going to get into too much advanced detail on that, but that's kind of how it works nowadays. Just like in your car, I mean, you look around, how many cars or vehicles in general do you see come with a CD player? Just kind of the whole media in your hands thing is kind of going away. For me, I'm kind of old school in some ways. It kind of bothers me that we don't have those options. I think of it as losing control. Maybe I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist on some of these things, but it does kind of bother me. I like to be able to have something that I can use, even if it's expired old software. Maybe I can tinker around with my computer and run a virtual machine that will run that software, no problem. I mean, sure, that's a heck of a lot of work to go through to run software. Basically, I would be running software inside of a software on my computer just to run it and, to make a point. Or I could just go out and buy the latest version that would run on Windows 10 or the latest version of Mac OS 10. And is it worth the trouble? I don't think so anymore. I kind of just bite the bullet and pay the subscription service or pay for the perpetual licensing from a company, like, I don't know, CDW, maybe they offer some kind of perpetual licensing. You'll tend to see that in a corporate environment where you kind of get an install that can go on a lot of employees' computers. And, it's kind of supported, like any troubles you may have with that software is supported from that company that you're paying the support for a couple of years. So with that being covered, I want to move into subscription licensing. And so there is a difference. It's perpetual licensing and subscription licensing. There are differences. So what is subscription licensing? Well, this one you're probably actually going to realize you're more familiar with. It's everywhere now. The payment is recurring. So typically monthly or yearly licensing is what you will get for your software. If you stop paying, the software will typically stop working, or just to annoy the crap out of you until you pay that bill. You can't just keep using it like you would with your old school software. The benefit to subscription licensing is that it has a smaller startup cost than just buying the actual software like we used to. We used to just go out and pay $700 for Adobe DC, Acrobat DC, right? Some of them are really expensive. They were $300 to $700, I think. Don't quote me on that. I'm just doing this off the top of my head, but subscription licensing generally has a lower startup cost, but here's where my opinion starts to kick in, and you're giving somebody else a shutoff switch is where I'm going with this. So somebody always has control over your product that you do not own. Just like a lease, you don't own it. Somebody else does. You're paying for a service. So I do think that subscription licensing having a smaller startup cost is great for huge companies, as long as the monthly price is low. If you can lock in a good low monthly price, it can save you a lot of money in certain ways. Not every way. It ends up costing in the long run because you're always paying, but the efficiency and like the support, you got ongoing support, you get all that stuff included with that monthly subscription. And I think it's also good if you were wanting to try out the latest, most professional software, but aren't sure if you want to fully jump in long term. So you're not just going to pay that $700 up front. You're going to pay, if you want to pay monthly or annually, you're going to pay maybe $250 for like the Adobe Creative Suite, right? Where you get like all these different apps. You're not going to pay $500 for one of them like we used to. So it could be good for that. And if you're using these things for your career and you're making that money back, it's a no-brainer. Just buy it. I mean, have the latest and greatest. You should. But where I think it's utterly stupid, the subscription model is for things such as buying the rights to a song and stuff like that. And this subscription service is everywhere. Like when I went and looked for some songs just to use as a intro and outro for this, I couldn't find anything that wasn't a subscription service until I found one called, where's I had it written down? neosounds.com. And I bought the rights to this song that I own a little certificate they give me, and I can just show that anytime the song, if it was to get flagged or if I run into issues, I have the rights to it. I don't have to pay every month just to play this jingle. And then if I stop stop paying, I'm not going to lose the rights to it because I paid a lump sum. So going back to subscription licensing, though, there's benefits to it. Say you have an employee you have employees coming and going from your company. That could be so expensive if you're having to pay up front for a big piece of software and nobody's ever going to utilize it. With the subscription model, you could just shut off the license when that person leaves the company and not have to pay for it. Maybe you're a seasonal company, maybe you shut down for the winter. You don't have to pay for those licenses during the winter months. You can just turn them off and freeze your account and then come back once your business picks back up. So what I'm saying is I think that these little pointers can help you if you're a business or anybody thinking about going into a subscription-based model or just wondering what's going on with that. I do think there's a lot of discussion for this. We could go for a long time. I could get some people on here that would talk for hours about this, but I just kind of want to get to the point of explaining what they are and kind of giving examples. Let's jump into like some examples like Netflix or Google Play Music, Spotify, YouTube Music. I think Google Play Music is actually kind of referred to as YouTube Music now, but think of those services. You're not owning any of that content, really. I think there could be a balance where things make sense. I remember like maybe 15, 20 years ago, I would copy my CDs and compress them into an MP3. If you're all 30 somethings in here, maybe even 20 something, you probably know what I'm talking about. You've probably been there. Well, we would take those CDs, rip the songs off them. It's called, ripping the CD, right? We'd compress it to MP3 or any other format that supports audio compression, and we would store them on like a hard drive. Nowadays, storage is dirt cheap. So, you think it would make sense to just get a bunch of dirt cheap hard drives or SSD drives, solid state drives, and store all your songs, your lifetime collection on them. Well, even though I'm paying a music subscription, $15 a month for Google Play Music, I'm still merely renting the songs. And if I stop paying that monthly fee, I have no CDs in my hand to play. So wait a minute, our vehicles don't even come with CD players, right? It's like I'm heading off. I'm going to go head off to the junkyard after I record this show, and I'm going to buy a vehicle that has a CD player because this is ridiculous. I'm kidding, but there are a lot of conveniences to the subscription model, and it's hard to turn them down for a lot of companies. Places that I've worked for, we do the subscription model, and it's basically your serial number is your email address. And as an employee, if you leave the company, that email address gets terminated, and so does that subscription. So there's no more payment for that user. So again, if you can get a good deal, if you can work out a great deal, being that you're a big organization, say, or medium-sized even, maybe there's a deal you can work out if you're buying a bulk amount of purchases, or off the bat. But if you're just buying 2 or 3, I don't know how likely it is you would get a good deal. But again, the not having to look for CD keys or wonder if you have multiple users using them, you don't have to worry about that when you have a unique email address assigned to each copy of the software that's activated for the time they're using it. And again, though, conspiracy theory Randy doesn't think it's all that comforting to know that there's always a shut-off switch for somebody in the cloud. They can shut you off. Just like Netflix. You're watching your Netflix, or your cable in your house. You have no control anymore. It all tends to kind of go that way with all of these conveniences. You never have the full power in your hands. Now, I still know some guys that have a server in their house. They basically have an whole internet service provider in their house, and they're running up their electric bill. But they do have more control over their content than I do, and it's pretty cool to see. But maybe if you're doing that as a hobby and a learning experience, it's good. But it's just too much work sometimes. I don't have time to mess with that myself. But again, I can't have it all. I don't like losing that control over my software and licensing, but I kind of had to bite the bullet. Even Office 365, the episode I covered recently, if I stop paying that, it will stop working. But you also have to look at the essentials. I need my email. I need my domain. I use all of these services. It's not that expensive. It's like $5 a month for Business Essentials, Office 365. totally worth it in my opinion, and we know that Microsoft's going to be around for a long time. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for listening as usual. This was a shorter episode. Got a busy weekend here. Got a wedding coming up myself. Actually getting married in 98 days from this recording. It's pretty amazing, and I'm so happy to marry the love of my life. So with the closing remarks, I'd like to thank our guest, Vic the Cat, who's sitting here in the studio just observing. If you are a new listener to the Manly Hanley podcast, we would love to hear from you. Visit our website and leave a comment. While you're there, be sure to subscribe to the newsletter. Another reminder, I'm going to remind you one more time to sign up for that giveaway. Please do it. If the odds are good. Follow Randrums on Twitter. That's RANDRUMS. And be sure to like the Manly Hanley podcast Facebook page. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great day.